Hi, I'm Cassie.
And I'm Mariah.
And this is the Cassie and Mariah Show, a podcast where two long-distance internet friends, that's us, discuss navigating their 20s through disability and chronic illness. Mariah, I just noticed that we had the same pre-podcast routine of both sitting here, putting on our Glossier lip balms.
We got our Glossier lip balms on. We're both wearing the color pink right now. And we have our microphones set up the same way. We both just had our snacks. We are ready. We are in podcast mode.
We may be 3 hours apart, but we are, in sync.
We are 3 hours apart, but we're on the same page.
How has your week been?
My week's been all right. I was working on my taxes for my small business this week.
Responsibility slay.
Right? It's just I love doing paperwork like that I can sit there and do, right? Because it's I just allot the time for it. I'm okay, this task will take me about 5 hours. Crack knuckles, light a candle, get a cup of coffee. I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's crush it.
Is enjoying paperwork is that a disabled, chronically ill kid thing? I've just been filling out paperwork my whole life. I'm I got this.
No, you're so right. Because that's whenever I have to update my med list, I'm oh, hell yeah. Time to add more shit on here and cut things that I'm not taking anymore. It's just, I don't know. I'm not even a big spreadsheet person. I don't know how to make spreadsheets the way that are, productive, but I love doing that type of paperwork, especially when I have when I can, set time aside to do it. And, you just get it done, and it's great. So I did that yesterday. I did everything in one day because, I was not going to split that up. I was going to crush it in one day.
Nice.
I also booked some markets for the spring, which that's really fun. Going to go to some new venues to vend at. And the new Fortnite season came out yesterday. So you know me, I've been gaming. I played last night, I played this morning, and I'm going to play again later today.
Now that I realize that you've mentioned this before to me, but I didn't process that you said that it's a new season, and now I'm realizing just how little I know about Fortnite. I'm what does that mean? Is it a show?
So the game itself the year is called a chapter. So every chapter they update the map that you play on. And then every season, which is 4 times a year, because it's not really in tune to seasons, as in seasonal, spring, summer, stuff like that. It's just kind of whenever they put them out. And there'll be new weapons, there'll be new skins, there'll be new places on the map. It just kind of rejuvenates the game every few months, which makes it a lot more fun to play because then you learn how to use new weapons. You go to the new places, you unlock them, and they're very visually appealing. Because they're this season they have this season they put a bunch of cherry blossom trees and bamboo trees, and there's hot springs, and it's very fun. They don't do anything other than just add an aesthetic, add things to hide in or behind, but it's just just so visually appealing to me. It's very, I don't know, it's just very aesthetic. And right now it's because we're in cherry blossom season that it's oh, it's even prettier to watch the leaves and stuff in the game fall.
I guess I'll just need you to become a Twitch streamer so that way I can specifically watch you play Fortnite, so that way I know what it is, because I gotta stay hip.
Fortnite, what's funny to me is the hype of it was when it first came out in 2018. So actually now playing it, there's a lot of kids that play it because it's also a free game. So I find a lot of kids that play it now, and not a lot of older people, because older people people my age are playing other shooter games that are more newer. But yeah, Fortnite, it's just fun. It's just fun to play with friends because you can play multiple people. So this is not an ad. I just like talking about Fortnite. But what are you up to, Cassie? What's going on?
I feel this week was a bit of a blur to me because so much of it was just school and meetings. I haven't had a ton of meetings lately, and I'll talk more about that towards the end of the episode, but it kind of just made it a bit overwhelming, a bit Zoom fatigue-y for the first time in months. But yeah, it's also like almost the end of the term, and so like I wrote one paper earlier this week, and then today I was having to go through my sources for my next paper and pull out notes, and it's like, I don't know, the paper seems pretty purposeless, and like just because it's the final paper, we're now required to have like 6 sources instead of 4 or something like that, even though it's still only 1,000 words. And I'm like, that seems excessive, but okay.
Oh, I do not miss writing papers like that in college, especially like having to use like an MLM format or MLA format.
Multi-level marketing scheme of higher education.
just shows how far disconnected I am from like the sphere of like writing research papers. I am not there.
It's like all of my classes require different citation formats. So it's like I can't even remember or like learn the difference between them, because they're like, one of them's like use Chicago author date. The other one's like use APA. The other one's like, I don't care. Just be consistent. And I'm like, it's like, thank God like Google Docs has like the citation thing built in, because that makes it a lot easier. But I'm just like, I don't know. To me, I just like, I'm somebody who like, I really prefer to take what I learn and apply it to my personal life. And I feel like academic papers don't really give me the leeway to do that. And so it's pretty boring to me. But
yeah, right. Because like, when are you going to, use formats like that in person?
Unless you're like, gonna be a researcher and like write that type of stuff. But it's like, I don't even regularly read that kind of thing. And so that's been just kind of annoying, but I'm like so close to being done with that other paper, so that'll be nice, because then I just have a couple busy work things to get done, and then I'm done with the term. So
cool.
Be nice to be done. I don't know. We've talked about it before, but I'm like, I love being on a term system. I know you said that like over there they do semesters, and I'm like, no, I get sick of my classes. I'm like, I'm ready for different ones.
No, you're so right. Like 2 semesters that you would take for college here, you take 3, terms, and that is so, like, you learn so much more. And you probably only learn, like, the very concise things that need to be known for that topic.
Yeah, like, we cover a lot more ground a lot faster, I feel like, which is fun. Yeah, it's interesting. And especially being a liberal studies major, it's cool because I'll be taking classes that, like, obviously anybody in any major can take. Like, there's not too many prerequisites and stuff. And so then they actually do a pretty good job of, like, tailoring the content so that way, regardless of your major, you'll find something that's interesting to you or relevant to what might be relevant to your degree. So that's cool. And then also yesterday, so it's currently, as we record this, it's mid-March, and so there's like in Oregon in like non-midterm and non-presidential years, that's kind of when like our school board races typically are, and so people are starting to freak out because the filing deadline's almost here, and there's some races where there is just horrible people signed up and nobody running against them. So that's deeply concerning. And so for one of the districts that I live in, that was the case. And so somebody that I organize with actually signed up to run. So that's been very exciting and kind of a whirlwind of like figuring out, okay, like we gotta get you filed and like get your voter pamphlet statement like filled out like as soon as possible, because all the deadlines are coming up right now. But it's like, anything it takes to keep a transphobe out of office.
Right? Yes. We will do what it takes. And I love that for you. And I love that for them, that you get to help them out with their campaign and getting all, really cracking down on what needs to get done. I love that. Very productive week for the both of us, it sounds like. Today's episode, we're talking about starting things, whether it be like social media pages or small businesses, nonprofits, groups, music blogs, and all of the stuff that falls in between. So, Cassie, give us a rundown. What are the things in your life that you've started?
Oh man, I feel like I've been starting shit since I can think. No, that's what like the starting things phrase makes me think of. I'm like, yeah, I'm like here to start shit. But no, I feel like the first thing that I created probably not created, I guess more so started, was when I was in high school and, was like all over, as we talked about last episode, like One Direction, Five Sauce Twitter. It was a very big thing, specifically, I feel like in the Five Sauce fandom in like 2013-ish, to basically have fan meetups where you would like make posters about like wanting Five Sauce to come to your state, because at this point the only tour they had done was with One Direction, like opening for them, so those are the only places they had really played. And so it was pretty easy to start that, in the sense that it was just replicating what fans in other cities were already doing. And also because, like, since One Direction and Five Sauce had at least gone to Seattle, like, a lot of people from Portland had gone up, and so it's like, at that point I was already connected with a lot of other fans in the area, and so it was kind of just as easy as, like, starting, like, the Five Sauce to Oregon, like, Twitter page, which I'm pretty sure still exists. I handed it off years and years and years ago. But, and then I literally, like, made, like, some sort of, like, PixArt, like, flyer being like, we're gonna meet, like, in downtown Portland and hang out at the mall and, take pictures together, and, that's how I made some of my best friends.
That's so cute, though. Like, very teenage girl of you to do that.
Yeah. Some other things that I've started, also in high school, like, when I was more so shifting from, like, being active on, like, fandom social media to instead being more involved in local music and, like, realizing I wanted to work in the music industry, I think somebody had recommended to me that, like, the best way to get, like, my foot in the door was, like, to write about music or something like that, or at least, like, just to do anything to, like, show that you're kind of, like, serious, or like just anything to get on your resume, I guess. And so my friend and I at the time had we started a music blog, which originally was literally just on like Tumblr, because we, especially like because that was in 2015, and I feel like back then, like, things like, I don't know, like Squarespace and Wix and all of that, like other like more like easy to make website stuff just wasn't as popular as it is now.
No, you're so right, because, like, I don't think that stuff existed, or you'd probably just be better off making, like, a blog on, like, WordPress. But I think on Tumblr, it was easier to get your stuff out there. Like, I feel like it was easier for people to come across rather than having your own, like, website URL that you had to give out to people if they wanted to read what you're talking about.
And it was free. And also, like, having grown up on Tumblr, which I realized we didn't even talk much about Tumblr last episode. I kind of forgot it existed.
Well, I also never had a Tumblr.
Interesting. I feel like I really only used it during kind of the Five Sauce era, was probably when I was most active on it. But it's like, that's kind of was a good way to learn, like, a little bit about coding and stuff, and it's like there was so many like free like themes that people had designed, so it was like easy, like it was like low barrier to entry. But I feel like I've always just loved writing, and like I don't know, like having gone from like fandom Twitter where you're constantly talking about music all the time to like just making that in a more like actually written out format. It's like, that was kind of a nice way to do it. And then, I mean, like the next like big thing after that obviously was starting Half Access, which starting an actual legitimate like registered business nonprofit. Very different experience. Much bigger learning curve, had really no idea what I was doing, but fortunately I had been volunteering with like a local music related nonprofit called Friends of Noise, who like offered me a lot of mentorship and like stuff like that in terms of how they like got their 501c3 status and just like all of that, because I mean a lot of it was just me Googling the whole time because I had no idea what I was doing, because I was like 18 when I started it, I think. I feel like those are kind of the main big things. I've also like, I had a time in my life where I went viral on TikTok, so I was kind of regularly making TikToks for a while. I've honestly privated a lot of my TikToks now, mainly because I literally don't even have the app on my phone anymore, and I'm just like, I don't want to be perceived while I'm not on there at all. And also just because, I don't know, it's so hard to like think of. I'm like, I don't know, I love erasing my internet existence. But I mean, in a way, that was kind of starting a thing, even though it was revolving around just me posting on TikTok. I don't know.
I mean, it's like a TikTok, like, activism slash, like, influencer in a way. Because I know you'd mostly post about, like, disabled living, like, you know, ideas like that. Or just, like, yeah, how it is to be a disabled person. And that information on TikTok, at least for me, like, I didn't come across it that much. So I feel like your page is also very informative, though. I enjoyed your content a lot, you know, speaking from an outsider perspective.
Too bad I let the ableist bullies get to me.
But it's really like protecting your peace, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, because I would get that too. If I had any type of like trolls like that come after me, it's like, okay, is this even, like, mentally, for your mental health, like, is this even worth it to keep doing if these people are going to act like this? You know, like, they're, those sad sacks of human beings on this earth.
Exactly, and I think, because it's, like, obviously, anytime you start something, like, you want to get, like, whether it's to, like, do something for the world, like, but you're still getting, like, some self-satisfaction of feeling like you're making an impact, or, like, even if you're doing something for yourself, then you have the satisfaction of doing something for yourself. Well, in that case, it's like, yeah, I mean, the only thing I was really getting out of it was, like, obviously, like, community and stuff, so it's like, then when all your comments become trolls and you feel like you have to be super careful about what you post because it could, like, end up on the, like, make fun of disabled people side of TikTok, it's like, especially because I had, the problem was I had called out ableism on the app, because I don't know if it's still a thing, but at the time, at least, it was a very common thing for people to use emojis of disabled people, especially blind people, to be like, I didn't see anything. And so I called out how absolutely absurd that was, because at some point, a very popular, to this day, creator, like, posted an actual video of them pretending to be a blind person, to, like, literally bring to life the joke. And so basically I'd called that out, and so then people were it's embarrassing to be bullied in emoji form.
Yeah, because then people would swarm your comments with that, or, like, with other disabled emojis, and it's like,
wheelchair into the hole emoji.
Ugh. You know, and it's like, some of these people, it's like, you can't even try to be creative. Like, you're just being boring.
And they're also probably 12. But yeah, so I tried that a little bit. I feel like kind of the last few things that I started since then was, like, I did kind of help start up, like, the 2.0 version of Clackamas TSA, but I don't, like, consider that really something I started so much, because it was started, like, in community with other people, and so it's not like I felt any sort of, like, individual responsibility or ownership over that necessarily, even though there was only a few of us at the beginning. Like, it feels like very collectively cared for. And then I also did help start Sunrise, like the rural Oregon Sunrise movement, which just never really got anywhere.
But it's just the fact that, like, you know, without your hand in these things, they wouldn't have existed, or existed to the extent that they do now, which I think that's really cool, you know, to think about, just, like, you know, putting down those stepping stones so other people can, like, follow along the path.
That's a really good point, and I hadn't considered that, like, even, like, I feel like you were mostly referring to the last two things, but, like, even, like, thinking back on, like, my presence on TikTok, like, I do think that it still contributed to, like, the disabled community on there, and, like, making other disabled creators feel seen and safe, and, you know, stuff like that. But yeah
I mean, like, it's important, you know, for those, like, safe spaces, especially on an app like TikTok, to exist, because TikTok, I find, is, I don't know if it has to just do with the fact that it's, like, kids on there, but I think that it is a lot of trolls, and, you know, I think TikTok creators probably face a lot of the brunt of it, you know, when it comes to, like, just speaking their mind and speaking things about themselves. Which I would imagine, you know, it's hard to even just, like, be a creator. So I feel like the fact that you got to at least, like, have some type of, like, residency in that area, it's like, it's still, like, that's great. You know, I always see it as a win.
Yeah, and, like, I think, let's see, my two videos that went the most viral, or I guess there's three. The first one was a about playing guitar overhanded. So I'm like, okay, there's at least like a million people, which is, that feels crazy to say, but there's like a million people out there who now know that like there are ways to play instruments that are not the traditional ways, and maybe that has like helped inspire other disabled people to like realize, oh, like I don't, just because I can't play an instrument like somebody else does, maybe like I still can play. Or like my other one that went viral was about how I have made driving more accessible to me with like using pedal extensions and stuff. And so like a lot of people didn't realize that like disabled people could drive, which I think I ended up having to turn the comments off on that one because I feel like people were saying weird things on that one, which is funny because I'm definitely a safer driver than all of them. But
and I also think a lot of it was probably like unsolicited advice that was just really annoying. Like I remember one person telling you like, why don't you get a car that you can drive? And it's like, yeah, let's just go out and buy you a new car. Like, that will solve all the problems.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it doesn't matter, like, what car I have. I still need pedal extensions and stuff. And especially because I think it was because I needed a stool to get in the car, and people were giving me advice about that. And I'm just like, I didn't ask. I'm just trying to share my experience. And then I think the last one that went viral, which was actually kind of after I had taken quite a hiatus from TikTok, was that I posted about finally getting off of SSI, and just about how horrible the whole experience with the whole thing was, and so that went viral. But a lot of people had good faith questions, and so it's like, it's just cool that I was able to like, in the very least, like, there are people who know more things about all of these things now, which is cool.
Yeah, right? Like, you spread some really important information that people didn't know beforehand, you know? I even think the thing is, too, is, like, a lot of kids that probably use these apps, like, if they're disabled or if they are facing anything like that, it's like, oh, they know that there's options out there that they could drive in the future, or, like, they could play guitar, and, like, you don't have to learn the traditional way to play guitar.
Well, and I hadn't even really thought about it, but I think that, in a way, this podcast is kind of, like, taking the place of, like, what I was trying to get out of, like, TikTok. In terms of like being able to be that representation, share like unique perspectives and stories about like what it's like to function in the world, you know? Except for in this format, it's nice because we're not limited to like a few minutes, or I mean, at first TikTok I was limited to like 60 seconds and stuff like that, so it's just like, it's nice to just be able to more freely talk about stuff. But what about you? I know you've started a few things over the years, including like in the time, I feel like they've all been in the time I've been following you, because I remember following most of these things.
Yeah, like if I go back to like high school, there wasn't anything outside of school that I really did that was like my own thing. I know like I don't know, this probably always ties back to like even like the present day. Like I always like this idea of like having a job as a content creator because I'm funny. Like that. Like I feel like that's a very like big, you know, thing in my head. So I would make different Instagram accounts for the interests that I had at the time. So we'll start with my plant Instagram. So when I was in college, I took a class that was called Intro to Plants, and it was a very like biology related course. And you know, I always was like the type of person in school that was like, oh, if I have to take like a science class, if I had to take like a psychology class, like I always tried to pick ones that were very like interesting to me and weren't just a basic like bio 101 type of thing, because I hated that. I would have never learned. So I needed a science class that had a lab, and there was Intro to Plants, and it was just a basic biology course, and I took it, and I learned so much information that I still know to this day. And that was probably one of the only college classes that I really, truly cared about. And I also think having enthusiastic professors, having friends in the class, like it does a huge help along with enjoyment of the class, of course. But one of the main things we learned was we learned how to propagate plants. And with plants like succulents, it's very easy. You could just literally pluck a leaf off a plant, and depending on the type of succulent it was, you could either just put that leaf into dirt, you know, with the part that you plucked off the plant, it's like a raw side, you stick that in the dirt, and then you just give it like a few drops of water, you let it get sun, and it will eventually grow roots and just create a whole plant. So I loved that idea. I would come home and I would take flowers off my mother's plants and trying to see what I could propagate and what wouldn't work or what did work. And there was one of our bio lessons where we propagated plants like that. We did in the beginning of the school year. We would choose some plants and, put them in the dirt, put them in the greenhouse and leave them there. And then, you would check on them every few weeks and you'd see how long the growth is or, what has changed with the plants. So that was a huge thing for me. I also learned a lot with like essential oils in that class, which I thought were very fun, because essential oils can be used in like body products. They could be used in like diffusers for your house, like to make things smell nice. Like I was just very intrigued on like the plant world in general because it just seems so interesting and it's all natural. Yes, you have your hand up.
How for people who aren't educated on this, how did the essential oils thing relate to the class?
So the essential oil things was basically just to talk about kind of how some plants have like healing properties or some type of like a sensory thing,
okay.
Mostly too. So like we would talk about how like a plant like lavender can help you sleep better, and like how lavender essential oil is very like relaxing to the body, and how it can affect like neurons in your brain when you smell stuff like that or when you taste it.
Okay.
So that was mostly like the essential oil part of it.
That makes sense.
So in the class, we made these lavender hand salves, and I remember I drew little lavender buds on mine, and my professor went nuts and had me draw lavender buds on like everybody's little hand salve jar, which I thought that was really funny. But I like thoroughly enjoyed that class. I loved learning about like wildflowers and monarch butterfly gardens, and it was just like, I feel like that was such a class where I was like, this is this is just enjoyment to me. Like I am having the time of my life. So at the end of the class, we got to take some of these plants home that we grew in the greenhouse, and I was obsessed with them because I was like, oh my God, I grew this from a leaf, and they're beautiful. They were all different types of succulents, and they all had very different like attributes to them, where some of them would grow really tall and some of them would grow like out, and some of them would change colors through the season. And I was posting about them on my Instagram story on my personal account, and all these, like, I had so many messages that were like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like the way that you're talking is so relaxing. The way that you're showing these plants are amazing. Like you should just make another Instagram where you just talk about plants. And I'm like, bet, as if I need like anything else, I'm like, I just love doing shit. So I made a plant Instagram. And like sidebar, in high school, my friend, my friends always had like funny nicknames for me where it would just be like Mariah, like M-A-R with something else at the end. So like it would be like Maru. And my one friend one day called me Mafrig. So that was like my nickname for my entire high school. So I carried that into college, and I named my plant Instagram Mafrig's Garden. And I was like, it was like one spring, summer season, and all I did, like, I'm posting plants every day. I'm posting my story every day about my plants. I'm showing, like, plant trips and, like, plant tips and tricks on, like, what to do when your plant's, like, sick, or, like, if you have, because even, like, some outdoor plants, indoor plants can get, like, little bugs on them. Mm-hmm. It's, like, how to take care of the bugs where it doesn't kill your plant. And I would just post that stuff all the time. I was obsessed. And I didn't have a lot of followers. I remember Miracle Grow, the corporate account, followed me, which I thought was really funny. Oh, she got millions of followers.
She's a real plant influencer.
Of course, I would be like, hi, you should send me fertilizer. Thank you. So that was just a great summer of where I was posting stuff. I remember a lot of people like would give me plant pots too. Like, oh, like I have a plant that's sick. Can you put it in this new pot for me? And I would do it, and they would be amazed. And it was actually got to a point where I didn't have a lot of followers on this account, but it was a very big like talked about thing. So a plant nursery near me that I got a bunch of plants from asked me if I wanted to do like a succulent event at their nursery. And it was like on one April afternoon, I was on there on a Saturday, and you could bring a plant and I would pot it for you. And I would like talk to you about succulents and how to take care of them. And it was like it like wasn't a class, but it was just like, oh, I was there hanging out that day. And I remember so many people came. It was like pretty fun. I was like, oh, I'm like a little influencer. Look at me with my plants. And I followed all these other plant influencers, and I wanted to be one of them so bad. Like, I want to be one of those people that had their entire bedroom was filled with 100 different house plants. it was just a great time. Like, I got like tickets to go to like an event in New York to listen to other people talk about plants and like just all these other little silly things like that. And it just was such a fun, and like, it was just very, I don't know, I liked it a lot just because like I love nature and I love plants, and I feel like it was just something that I thoroughly enjoyed teaching people how to take care of them.
Wait, so you didn't work at the nursery?
No.
I think that's some Mariah lore I made up in my head, because I think it's because wasn't your plant Instagram, like, wasn't your picture on there, like, or I just vividly remember a picture of you, like, wearing, like, an apron or something.
An apron and holding a plant.
Yes.
Yeah, so I didn't work there.
I thought, in my mind, I was like, oh, yeah, it's because she works there, and I've never seen someone who loves their job this much, but I love that for her.
No, I didn't work there. You know what's funny is I think I wanted to work there, but I just remember it was a very season, like the plant nursery was very, like, a seasonal business. They were only open a few months. So, and at the time I already had a part-time retail job, so I was like, I didn't really want to, although at that time I was really considering, I was like, maybe I should work at a nursery, maybe I should, enjoy something like that. And I did apply to one nursery to work at, but I think because a lot of these places, like, they want people who actually, like, mostly went to school for this type of stuff, which I understand. And they also wanted men because they wanted people that were able to, like, lift stuff and move things, which I was like, okay, like, I get it. But also, like, what about me? Like, what about my...
Haven't you seen how strong I am?
Haven't you seen my plant Instagram? That was just a very enjoyable summer. And yeah, like that little nursery thing, it was just great. And then around came the fall. And mind you, all my plants were outside. And I didn't really have an indoor plan for them yet because it was, again, like my first season of really taking care of these plants. I didn't really know how plants acted when they were, like, in the wintertime. Like, some plants are annuals where they'll come back every year. Some plants are, like, seasonal where they won't. So I wasn't really sure what to do. And I had this little greenhouse that I was using. It was just like a metal and wire frame and had this, like, green tarp that went over it. And I set one of them up downstairs in my basement. Didn't have the greenhouse cover on it. It was just the frame itself. And I tried to position it by a window. And once I brought everything down there and I set it up all cute, about like a month later, they were all dead. And that was even with me checking on them and watching them and taking care of them. It was just... between, like, the climate of the basement being a little bit more damp than usual, just because it's not, you're going to the colder parts of the year. The basement was cold, and they just weren't getting the sunlight that they were used to. So it was really unfortunate, and I think only 3 of them survived, and that were the ones that were meant to be indoors. Because I did bring some plants into my room, but I didn't want to bring all of them in there because I just didn't have the space for it. So when those plants died, so did the Instagram, because it really bummed me out, and I really didn't know how to continue without these plants being there. And this was about like 2018 was when this happened. And then, if you listen to the first episode of our podcast, you would know that 2018 was also the year I had a lot of really bad health problems. So that was also another thing of just like your hobby's really taking the back seat when you don't feel well. So that's what happened to that Instagram account. And you can still look at it to this day. It's just kind of like a time capsule. I haven't posted on there in like 4 years, but, it just still exists. So then during 2019, I decided to start another Instagram account based on another niche interest of mine. And that was a skincare beauty Instagram. Mostly because I just love to talk about skincare stuff with my friends or on Twitter. And like, I was kind of having this short, like, pipeline dream of like wanting to be an esthetician. So I started a beauty Instagram, and I followed a lot of other bloggers who would mostly talk about skincare, and that's what I liked. I didn't really like a whole lot of makeup. I wasn't someone who was very like artistic in that way, so I really didn't do a lot of crazy makeup things, but I did like skincare, and I really liked that idea of having like a 10-step skincare routine. So I started another Instagram, and it was called What's on Ma Frig's Skin. And I would talk about everything that I wanted to talk about. I would stage cute little photos in my house of like my skincare, and I would incorporate some plants into my photos, you know, and I would like, it wasn't really anything that I took too serious, but I just really enjoyed it. And it was a little bit of like another barrier of being like wanting to try these new skincare products, but also not really having the money to do so. So it was like I was just trying mostly like drugstore things or getting subscription boxes and using them. Like I would get like an Ipsy bag, which Ipsy is like a monthly makeup bag that you get sample size products in. Sometimes you get full size stuff. So I would do a monthly Ipsy haul and show the bags and, you know, everything like that, which I felt like was really fun. I liked it a lot. A lot of my friends like were like, this is great, like interacting with me. And it just was a really like overall fun and like girly experience. So I was doing that for a while. And I think that was shorter lived than the plant Instagram one was.
I will say that I don't know that I ever saw that one.
Yeah, I don't think that it wasn't as, I'm trying to even think when I started it. I think I started it like in early summer around then. Like where I think the plant Instagram account was just more active with people. Like I think I was also just posting on there a lot more, where the skincare one I wasn't. And a few reasons of being like, I felt like I couldn't get those like aesthetic photos that everybody else had. And it really made me like compare myself to like bloggers, but like these bloggers are people that are like getting paid to do this, or, you know, have other things on the outside of their life, where at the time, like, although I was like working a little bit, I really wasn't indulging too much time into the Instagram account like where other people were. And then I was also dealing a lot of problems with my skin, and it could have been the fact that like I was using so many products, or just the fact of like, you know, your skin changes. I was having really bad breakouts on my face, and it just made me not want to, like, I had to start seeing a dermatologist, and it just really kind of like lost the momentum that I had with the skincare account, because my dermatologist was like, you're like using too much stuff, where if you're using this stuff while taking acne medication, it's like there's too much happening to your face. Like if you're doing the acne medication, you need to only be doing a cleanser, acne medication, sunscreen, that's it. So that's what I was doing. And this was like right in the beginning of 2020 was when I kind of to fall off of it a little bit. I also just feel like I wasn't getting the, like, I just didn't have the motivation to do it, because I also, like, stopped those Ipsy bags and stuff, because, like, you know, that stuff, at the end of the day, they could be a lot of money. They could be almost, like, $25 a month that you're spending on new makeup stuff every month, and it just became very, like, clutter things, and they took up a lot of space. It took up a lot of, you know, money, like I said, and especially, with how I was, like, you know, being chronically ill, it's like I would have weeks where I'd go without working because I wasn't feeling well. And now that's like, okay, well, now I don't have the money to be spending on these skincare products or this like subscription box. So I'd cancel a lot of them. And then, yeah, I think it just mostly had to do with the fact that like I had just, my skin wasn't like looking right to me. Like I just didn't feel confident enough, where I was like, didn't want to be like posting my face as much. So that's kind of where the beauty Instagram kind of to fall off a bit. And then, yeah, it kind of mostly died in, like, 2020. I did, like, record a little video I wanted to post on Instagram with the beauty account of me doing my eyebrows. And I didn't get to post it because it was just turned out to be too long, and then I had to edit the video, and I was like, I'm not doing all this for my 100-follower Instagram account. Like, we're just going to let this die in the dirt.
And then... the big one.
The Moby Dick of Instagram accounts. My small business, Mariah's Crystal Studio. So, Mariah's Crystal Studio is a project that I started over quarantine. So, it was in the beginning of quarantine, I was getting into crystals, and I was buying them off Instagram Lives. I was buying them off any Instagram page I could find. I'd go on Etsy and look up crystals, and I feel like I was into it for like the metaphysical purposes and for the fact that they just look cool. When I was younger, I was one of those like rock kids where I would find like a rock in my backyard and be like, this holds powers from God. And I would carry it with me everywhere. And I still have a lot of rocks that I would do. You know, I still have a lot of rocks from when I was younger that I was like, wow, this is magic in my hands. Like nature made this. So I would just like collect a lot of crystals, and then my mom came home one day with this bag of crystals from their little staycation and was like, oh, you should like try to make jewelry with this, or like try to do something with these. Like they're just very small, they're cute, they're just little crystal tumbles. And there was like green aventurine in that mix, there was red jasper, snowflake obsidian, just very like basic, nothing too crazy. So I went to Michael's, and I already had some wire stuff from like other past jewelry projects that I would work on. I did wire wrap a crystal in like 2019, and it was this little amethyst, and I was like, this is amazing, like this is the best thing I'm ever gonna make with my hands. Was this little amethyst necklace, and I wore it a lot. So when my mom gave me the bag of tumbles, I already had some wire, and I started to wire wrap some of them. And I just remember I posted on my personal Instagram account and was like, hey, like, these are cool. Like, would anybody want a necklace from me? Like, would anybody buy one? And I'm not even kidding. When I had like 20 people message me all yes. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have 20 crystals here. So like, I got to kind of work on, something. So in one night I sat there and I just wire wrapped a bunch of crystals. And I posted on my Instagram story and was like, okay, like if, like what day should, like, cause I was like, I don't know how I'm going to sell these to people. I don't know how this is going to get out to people. And from, using Instagram during, quarantine, I saw people doing the Instagram lives, Instagram story sales. And I was like, well, what if I just post them all on my story and everybody can message me and claim ones that they want? And everyone's like, cool, great. Like that works for me, works for you, whatever. So I was figuring out what I should price everything at. And mind you, I didn't pay for the crystals, so I didn't even know how much this stuff was. And all I knew was like the wire and the pliers and just little things like that. I was like, okay, well, I'm assuming like, I think I did like $6 or $7 at first.
Oh my gosh.
Just to get it out there. And I was, and mind you, I was giving you a necklace, like the pendant on a cord with the crystal card in like a little cute envelope. So like, I definitely spent more money on this stuff than what I got back for it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't even know that this was going to become a thing. So I posted I remember I was like, okay, August 27th, that's when everything's going to go up on my Instagram. And I was posting the crystal, and I'd be like, here's a little bit of information about like the purpose of each crystal. So this way, when you're looking at it, you're like, oh, that's just a green pendant. It's like, no, that's green aventurine. It's for good luck. It's for prosperity and self-love. And it was more just me like being really excited that people were again into something that I was doing. Mm-hmm. And I posted all of that stuff on my Instagram, and I'm not even kidding when I say within 2 hours, it was all gone.
Amazing.
And I had people messaging me that would say like, oh, I'm claiming this one. And I'd be like, oh my God, like it already sold. Like it sold to somebody else. And like, it's so funny to me because it's like I would post a story and 2 minutes later, it like would already have to get taken down because it was purchased. It made me feel really bad because a lot of people wanted these pendants, and I only had like 8 to begin with. Or I actually think I had like 12, but I didn't have a lot. So when I'm posting them and people are like, oh, I want to claim this one, I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry, but it's already like claimed by somebody else. And I felt really bad having to tell people that stuff, even though it was nothing I could do.
You felt so bad that you were so cool and talented and successful.
Right? I just felt horrible. So, if anything, I was like, okay, well, if people like this, like, I'll just post more. So then the following week, I went to a few crystal stores, and this drop, I included, like, only 3 different types of crystals. I did green aventurine, rose quartz, and moss agate, or, like, tree agate. And it was another drop where it sold out immediately. And, like, it just kept going and going after that, where I was doing a drop once a week or every 2 weeks. And it was all pendants at first. It was just necklaces. And I didn't really even know what to do, because I felt like there was just all this, like, potential that I could be doing with this, and I just was posting it on my personal Instagram account. And then, like, 2 months later, I was like, you know what, like, I should just make my personal Instagram account my business account, because I'm not, like, because, okay, from my failed Instagram accounts prior, I didn't want to make another Instagram account and have people go to that account, because I felt like, here's my behind-the-scene, like, marketing brain working, is, like, people that were messaging me for these crystals were just like friends that already followed me that would just come across my story and see these. So to me, I was like, if I'm directing people to go to another Instagram account, I don't think I'm going to get that many followers, because I think a lot of these people that saw the crystals were just people that were already just clicking through the stories, that they may have not even been like that interested if it wasn't on their feed already. I just kept it on my Instagram account, and the following year I registered for an LLC and I started doing markets, and then I branched down to doing other different types of jewelry. And so nowadays I'm still doing necklaces, of course, but I am doing a whole bunch of other things like air plant holders. I make bracelets, I make rings, earrings, anything under the sun. I now sell in a few different stores, and it's just amazing that this whole experience really snowballed into a business, and that I get to really work from home most of the time, and I get to really just do whatever the hell I want.
True. It's been so cool because like you growing like Mariah's Crystal Studio has been like in a majority of our friendship. Like, yeah, Mariah's Crystal Studio and our friendship like overlaps like in terms of us regularly like talking and like truly being friends. And so it's been just so cool to see like how fast it's grown, and like just how it's like, you know, obviously the ebbs and flows of like navigating like being a small business, and like, but like just especially like your creativity though, and like, yeah, like as you've like added the different types of things, like every time you post a pair of earrings, I'm like, I'm about to stab holes in my ears right now.
Cassie's going to Claire's tomorrow to get her ears pierced.
They've already seen me twice. They don't need my business anymore.
They see you coming in, they're like, get out. Get out. Not you again.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, because I did have pierced ears, but then it's like, yeah, that doesn't work very well when you're a kid having surgery all the time, and like you can't actually take care of them because like you can't wear them during surgery, and then your ear holes close up, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I didn't get my ears pierced until I was, like, in middle school, at least. For that reason, too, of, like, you need to take your earrings out whenever you get scans done.
Yep.
So, like, you take your earrings out, they're in your mom's purse, and now you're not going to put them in until, like, 5 days later when you remember that they're not in your ears.
Exactly. Well, I'm curious, like, you know, a lot of the stuff that you've started has been within, like, the past, like, 5 years or so, whereas, like, for me, when I was, like, I feel like starting things a lot, or, like, more, like, apt to do it, it was more, like, high school age. I'm curious, like, I don't know, how do you feel, like, now about starting things? Because obviously, like you said, when you started Mariah's Crystal Studio, it was, like, you were scared to start a separate Instagram account because you were like, it's a whole nother thing. Like, you kind of get in the like, you start to take away, like, kind of lessons and just, like, I don't know, like, there's obviously a huge difference between starting your own thing versus joining something that already exists or something.
I feel like another main point is, like, I get bored really fast, and especially if it's not something that I'm receiving, like, I hate to say, like, attention from, or, like, any sort of, like, if I'm not gaining anything from it, I'm less likely to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So with my business, I feel nowadays what really keeps me going is markets, although I would like to keep my website updated as much as I used to. It just kind of didn't really, I feel like I think starting a website was, it was fun to be able to, like, create something that really fit into your aesthetic and to your, like, your niche. But I do really miss posting on my Instagram stories about stuff, because I think that it's just a lot more fun and, like, personal that way to post on Instagram. You know, if anything, the most recent thing I started was a personal Instagram account, because I did, like, I missed being a little bit, like, chaotic on my stories. And, you know, when you're a business account, I'm not going to be posting silly things all the time, just because, like, I just like to keep it like a tad bit professional. So my personal Instagram account was, like, the most recent thing I started. But what about you? Like, how do you feel now with, like, starting things versus joining things that are already created?
You know, it's funny because I feel like sometime last year I was like, I'm never starting anything ever again. And then when we were planning out this episode, I was like, oh my God, we started a podcast.
Yeah.
I did.
Very
like,
meta. We started a podcast. Hello.
I know. And it's like, the thing is, I am so used to starting things that I don't even know when I'm doing it, apparently. But I think it's just, like, for me, it's like, especially now where I'm at in life, it makes more sense to join things in the sense that, like, you know, like, especially with a lot of what I do, outside of school, outside of this, like, outside of, like, my personal life is, like, just, like, community organizing, like, politics stuff, like, it's, like, there's always something already in existence to join, like, I'm already part of organization, like, so it's, like, I don't feel the need to start anything. I feel like when I started, like, Half Access, it was, like, you know, theoretically, like, in hindsight, there was organizations that were at least adjacent enough that I could have been like, hey, do you want to expand your mission to also include this? But it's like, I mean, for the most part, there just, like, wasn't something that was doing what we were doing. But yeah, I think generally it's like my interests change so much that I don't like starting something because I want to be able to quit.
Yeah.
And I don't want, like, you know, it's like with, like, running the music blog, at some point there was, like, 20 or 30 contributors. Like, we were all just voluntarily doing it because we loved music. But it's just like, oh, like, other people, like, are part of this now, even though, like, I'm running it. Like, and so it's just like, it's a weird thing where it's like, just for yourself versus, like, for other people. Or, like, with Half Access, it's like, oh, like, this is actually, like, a service we're providing to the public and, like, trying to, like, solve this huge issue. There's a lot more weight to it than, like, even, I don't know, than even, like, a five sauce, you know, fan club. Like, it's very different.
The fan club, too, it's like that just primarily existed online. Whereas, like, Half Access is something where, like, you know, it's just online, but in order to really get out there, you have to get out there. Like, you have to go to these venues and talk to people and have these hard conversations and, you know, set up tables at concerts. And it's a lot more than just, you know, sitting there in your bedroom writing up a music blog.
Exactly. It's having to figure out how to have a board of directors, how to, like, just how to run a business, especially then once I started working, go back to school, just all of the things, and with my life changing. But I think it's, like, it's so much easier to join things because it feels like the decision of doing something is more your own. And, like, you're able to, like, I don't know, have more flexibility over life, which I feel like I really need and appreciate because, again, my interests change so much. And, like, but, like, I also love that I have, like, a history of starting things because I've learned and grown so much through doing it. Like, there's so much that I would change in the past, especially because, like I said, so much of the stuff I started when I was a teenager. Like, I was a horrible communicator in my friendships, and then you, like, mix friendship and business, and that makes it worse. Like, that makes it so much worse. If you're not already, like, good at open, honest communication, and if any, like, not even conflict, but just, like, open, honest thing, like, if any, like, communication, like, feels hard, then everything feels like a really big deal, but also everything feels like a big deal when you're, like, 16, 17, and so it's, like, I've definitely learned a lot more about, like, communication and, like, working with other people, and I also feel like, in general, like, trying to avoid, like, mixing friendship and business, or, like, friendship and work, I say as, like, we're besties and starting a podcast together.
So say, if this ever doesn't work out, baby, I'm going down with the ship. Like, don't look at me to keep doing anything afterwards. This will be the last thing I start. Yeah, I mean, like, if I have any lessons learned to share it, it's, like, really, you know, I think a lot of the things I realize is, like, almost like having self-control in a way. Because nowadays I'm like, okay, if I'm going to start something, I have to stick to it. And I have to want this, I want to see the end of this. Like, it can't be something that I'm, you know, investing time and money into and then I don't go anywhere with it. Like, because I also had that idea of, like, wanting to start, like, playing video games online and streaming and, you know, wanting to be, like, a Twitch streamer in a way. But I'm like, okay, realistically, am I going to invest the money into this equipment and then not want to do it anymore? Or now see, like, video games as a chore or work rather than a nice hobby. Because I think for me, what I've learned is like monetizing my hobbies is what makes me hate them.
Yeah. Which, that's something I feel like we could do a whole episode on, is
Yep.
just, like, we literally are, like, generation, like, monetize everything you do. And I mean, I think that's for so many reasons that we can get into in the future, but no, that totally makes sense that it's so hard, because it's like, you're like, oh, but I want to spend all my time doing my hobby, and therefore I need to also make a living off of it, but also, yeah, then it makes you not like it, so it's hard.
Yeah, and then, I mean, another thing I learned is like how a lot of this stuff, especially with starting a business, felt so intimidating and so scary. And then once you're on the other side of it, you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. Like when I was doing my taxes yesterday and itemizing my bank statements, I was like, oh, like I know, the very basics of this, and that's all I need to know. Because like, there's professionals out there that are going to help you. So you're mostly just kind of doing things that you need to do. But like when I filed for my LLC, I was like, oh, getting all those ads online that are like, oh, have somebody else do it for you. Pay them $100. And it's like, no, this is so easy. Like all you need to know is the very basics. And then you can get it done, and you could do it yourself. And you can even feel like a bit more like gratified that you did it yourself.
Exactly. It was the same way with, like, filing for Have Access's, like, 501c3 status. People were like, you need to have lawyers do it, blah, blah, blah. It was a ton of paperwork. It was a lot harder than just registering. You end up waiting several months before you hear back. But we successfully did it on the first try. No lawyers. I was literally, like, 18, 19, doing this 501c3 paperwork, and it's like, it saved us thousands of dollars that we could instead invest in the mission, like, in the website. Like, it was so worth it to just take my time learning everything. And also, it's so funny, like, talking to the board now and, like, helping transition, like, people are like, oh, I don't know about taxes, and I'm like, oh, when you're a small nonprofit, taxes take about 2 minutes. You just go, yeah, we did not make like $1 bajillion, so and that's literally all they want to know, and then you're done.
Yeah, because like, and that's kind of how I felt too, or do my LLC. I was like, I would have had to pay somebody else so much money to do this for me. And what I thought was hilarious was like, the phone numbers are on, like, for New Jersey, it's like the business.gov website had these phone numbers, and it's like, if you need help, call them. I call them, they'd answer right away and be like, hey, what's up? I'm like, oh, like, I wasn't expecting to talk to a person. I was expecting to leave a voicemail for someone that will never get back to me. I felt like it just became very user-friendly, where it's like, oh man, I'm like, you have these websites that follow you like sharks that are like, oh, use us to file, for your LLC. You use us to get a business license. And it's like, no, you can do it. And like, that's how I feel with doing my sales tax every quarter. I'm like, this is easy. I could do it. And it's like great for me that I'm like, I could just sit here and do this on a Tuesday afternoon. And it's not like, it's really, I'm not getting upset over it. Like, it's like, I feel great.
Well, and even, like, learning about podcast distribution for the podcast, like, it's like, I knew nothing about that, but we, found a way to do it where it's like, a way to distribute for free, even though it's like you have to, like, set up your distribution for every platform initially, and hopefully, if you're hearing this, that means it's available on all platforms, and it's doing it automatically. I really, really hope so. But it's like, we're literally finding out as we go, like, we're learning as we go, and to me, I think I really enjoy that part about starting things, is you learn so much by learning to, like, do stuff yourself.
Yeah, it's a very big Gen Z thing, I think. Doing things yourself. I think that it feels great. Why pay somebody else when I can do it? When I work great. So now we're going to transfer to a segment. And this is a new one. It seems like every week we're going to have another new segment to talk about. So this one is called, How Are You Really? Cassie, how are you doing, really? Tell me the truth.
How am I really? We thought of this because it's like, everyone's always like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And then it's like, no, you're not. Although whenever I tell people how I'm really doing, like, they're like, hey, Cassie, how are you? And then if I tell them how I'm actually doing, they're like, oh my God, I didn't actually mean
for you to tell me. Yeah, I didn't care about this. Why are you telling me?
They're like, what do you mean that you're really upset? No, I'm actually, generally I feel like I'm pretty content in life right now. I am feeling like I'm kind of going back into like a transition period in life, which is kind of annoying because I feel like things haven't been just like stable for a while for me. It's like, it's like about a year ago I got my job, and then it's like in September I quit my job and I started at school, and then it's like in December it's like the term ended, and then my mom had her transplant, and so then it's like winter term. I was like online, which I still am, like I'm online and like caregiving, and so it's like now that like my caregiving responsibilities are going down a bit, instead it's like filling my time with like stuff for me instead, in terms of like joining the club at school like I mentioned before, and like helping my friend run for office and stuff, and just like doing the things that I had to kind of put off to help caregive for my mom. And so it's a bit overwhelming, and like knowing that like, okay, like literally this time next month, like I'm gonna be like back on campus at least a couple times a week and stuff like that, and it's a bit overwhelming because I mean, the best thing I can compare it to, honestly, is it's like obviously like in 2020, like most people were at home all the time, and it was very overwhelming to like go back out into the world and socialize again and like stuff like that. Like it's overstimulating, I think. And so I think that's kind of a bit of what I'm experiencing, is I've literally just been spending so much of the past few months alone in my room. The only place I go is like doctor's appointments and stuff, and it's like I'm not even going places yet, but it's just the fact that I'm doing more online interacting with people in terms of like joining meetings and like just like doing stuff that will have like tangible real world things going on. And so it's a bit overwhelming in that regard. I feel a little bit scattered, and like I really need to be conscious of work-life balance, because like when I started school in September, I intentionally quit a bunch of things to make sure I have plenty of time for school and stuff. But I think I'm just bad at letting myself have time to do things that are just for me, because it's like I instantly am finding myself like, being like, oh yeah, it's another election season, I want to like help everybody, do everything I possibly can. It's like I'm really bad at like letting myself have downtime that's like just for reading books or playing music and stuff like that. So I'm really trying to be conscious of that, and like be able to like slow down, communicate like my needs and like what I actually am able to give, like be thoughtful, so that way I don't like get myself to a place where it's too much just because I'm initially excited about something. Like I need to think things through, which I took a personal decision making class this term, and that's helped a lot in slowing me down and deciding how to spend my time and things like that. But I think I still just have to be really careful and thoughtful and making sure I'm sticking to what I want to be doing with my time.
Yeah, especially like slowing down. It's very easy to just kind of get caught up in like the day-to-day tasks and like the repetitiveness of everything. And I would imagine it's like scheduling time to like go to classes, and now you have to like commute to these classes, and now you get to actually be present in this classroom instead of sitting in your room on a class. So I definitely think that it's a lot, but I think in due time it will come together, and you'll be back to kind of in this place of being where, okay, cool, like I can handle this every day, and every day it's like you can look forward to going on campus.
See, I'm like, yes, theoretically, but then about the time I get settled into spring term, then the term is going to be over. I'm not going to have any classes in the summer, and we'll hopefully be doing an internship, which will be its whole own thing to settle into, and then it'll happen. It's just like every term, it just kind of happens, and I guess I should anticipate that, but I don't.
Such a human thing where it's like once you get used to something, it changes, and it just really sucks.
How about you, Mariah? How are you really?
How am I really? Here at the Cassie and Mariah Studios, we very much embrace our mental health struggles, because it's important to talk about stuff like this. And as much as we talk about physical health, mental health goes hand in hand. So today I cleaned my room, and I say that with empowerment, because it's taken me a while to get to a point where because I used to be in this habit of like every Sunday was my cleaning day. I would go around my room, and I would like use my sanitizing wipes on my desk, my nightstand. I would do my laundry, and it was like a very like therapeutic process to me. And I kind of fell out of doing that after the market season last year wrapped up, because I just kind of was like, oh, I could clean any day, or I could do this task any day. I don't have to leave it on a Sunday, where it was a Sunday because markets would usually be on a Friday or a Saturday. So I would clean on Sundays. And now I kind of fell out of cleaning altogether, which, like, you know, I think with, like, yeah, like with mental health stuff, it's hard to kind of almost like pay attention to your surroundings in that way, because you're just worried about so much what's going on internally. So today I was like, you know what, like, I have plans where I want to get a new dresser, and I want to, you know, move my desk out of my bedroom to put into our spare room, and to just like clean up my environment in that way, just like, you know, move everything around, very, you know, getting very used to where my furniture is. So I'd like to change it up. So today I cleaned, which was very nice. And then tomorrow I'm going to be doing my laundry, which I know sounds like such a mundane task, but to me, I love that shit. Like, I love cleaning, like, bed sheets, cleaning clothes, like, drying things. And it's like another, like, it's just self-care in a way to make sure you have
Very
fresh, clean clothes for the week. Yeah, exactly. So I did that today. I also like to, when I take like showers and stuff, everything for me has to be an adventure. I can't just take a shower. I got to make it a whole thing. So I got like really nice shower steamers to use. I got nice hair oils and like body lotion type of stuff. And I love to use that. I just like to make everything an enjoyable experience. And that's what I did today. So how am I really? I'm doing better. Not 100% yet, but I feel like I'm doing better. And I just try to look at I have a little like piece of paper that's above my desk, and I write some things on it to just remember during the week of like, you know, finding the time to do my priorities, not rushing myself when I'm cleaning even, or just like during the day, like not everything needs to be rushed. It's very important to take your time, and to practice patience and gratitude, and to be mindful and, you know, leave the house and go for a walk, or go, you know, for a drive, or just go somewhere that brings you into just a new space. Because like a few months ago, you know, I'm taking a few like online classes, like writing classes. They're very like low effort. So when I would do the work for the class, I would go to like a Barnes and Nobles and sit there with a coffee and do my homework. And I loved that. And I fell out of like doing that process, and then I just kind of got to the point where I wasn't doing the homework, or I was just rushing myself while doing it. So this upcoming week, I'm like planning to go back to Barnes & Nobles at least one day to do homework, or even I was thinking to go to Barnes & Nobles and edit the podcast.
Ooh.
Because for the listeners out there, I edit the podcast. So,
and I transcribe it.
Yes, I'm using my audio sound design degree.
Yes.
That usually would hang on my wall, but it fell, so I have to hang that back up.
Oh no! The fall of the degree.
Fall of the degree in many ways. So I'm looking forward to doing that this week, and just really taking, like you said, like taking my time. Well, that's a wrap on this week's episode. Be sure to follow the Cassie and Mariah Show wherever you listen to podcasts, at TCMissPod on Instagram and Twitter, and look out for new episodes every Wednesday. Bye.